This is the 5th installment of our series entitled Terms and Conditions, where we are exploring different assumptions that seem to be present in conversations about racial injustice. Each of these terms and conditions are based on actual conversations that I've had over the past year with people who are either neutral on issues of racial injustice or they are passively or actively opposed. And each of the terms and conditions goes something like this. If black people expect for others to fight against racial injustice, then they'd better fill in the blank. And today's terms and conditions are, if black people expect for others to fight against racial injustice, then they'd better present some solutions. But it doesn't have to be. Okay, so over the past year, I've been trying to take every opportunity that I can to talk about justice, and especially racial justice in America. And so oftentimes I get messages on Facebook or Instagram or different places from people who say something like, well, Andre, you're often talking about the problem, but you don't really present a lot of solutions. And there are a couple groups that seem to bring up that criticism a lot. The first group are people who are racism deniers and people who don't think that racism is a problem, that black people are either making it up or making excuses. And there's another group of people who actually does believe that racism is an issue and wants to do something about it, but are looking to people like me to give them answers about what to do. And so they're saying, listen, I'm on your team, I'm an ally, I want to be involved, but all I hear you doing is telling me what I'm doing wrong or what people are doing wrong or what's wrong with society. I need some answers about what to do about it. Regardless of which direction they're coming from, both of those groups assume that there's some kind of responsibility on black people to tell others how to solve the problem of racism. Yeah, this one's a pretty easy one to respond to. There are a couple of issues with these terms and conditions, and the first one, and really the main idea of this blog, is that solving racism is not really black people's responsibility. If you had a friend that was being abused by their boyfriend or husband and they were telling you about it, you probably wouldn't respond to them saying, well, Becky, I hear you complaining a lot about this problem, but I don't really see you coming up with any solutions to solve the fact that your husband or boyfriend is abusive. The idea here is basically that it's not fair to tell people who are in some kind of context of oppression that they have no right to convey the pain of that experience unless they have already figured out a way to solve that problem. I know this idea might be new and surprising to some people because when we look at history, we see that some of the greatest abolitionists and freedom fighters and civil rights leaders were actually the people who were affected by the things that they were trying to change and the things that they were trying to fight against. But when we think of those people who marched the streets in protest of the widespread segregation in America in the 1950s and 60s, those people who sat at those segregated lunch counters, those people who refused to give up their seat on those segregated buses, we would also do well to remember that they should never have been put in that situation to begin with. The problem with those terms and conditions is that it turns our attention away from the people who are actually perpetuating that particular unjust social arrangement. The problem with these terms and conditions is that they assume that every black person is supposed to become the next Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or the next Fannie Lou Hamer, and to lead the way in fighting against racial injustice. It turns our attention to those who are suffering from those injustices to end them, rather than focusing on the people that participate in those injustices and those who benefit from those injustices. It doesn't seem like many people expect for sex slaves to get together and organize and devise a comprehensive platform for ending human trafficking around the world. It seems clear that the solution to that problem is for people to stop participating in systems that allow for that social reality to be a thing. So why can't people seem to apply that same principle to racism? Sounds kind of like people who say things like that are just saying that they just don't want to be bothered with it. You're the one who's hurting because of the way society's arranged, so that's your problem. Well, you heard my take on today's terms and conditions. What are your thoughts? Please feel free to share them underneath this video or on Facebook or on my blog or wherever you're watching this. If you've been enjoying this series and you want to make sure that you never miss a post, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel or to my mailing list from my website, AndreHenry.com. and you'll get this content delivered directly to your inbox. The music that you heard on this episode was also original, and you can hear that at my website as well. And this video has been brought to you in part by my patrons at Patreon. Shout out to Tamisha Tyler and Becca Benavich for your support, and all my other patrons at Patreon. If you would like to be a part of creating content that covers justice issues like this, I would love it if you would consider becoming a patron. You can find my Patreon page at patreon.com/AndreHenry-Music. I'm trying to update my blog every Thursday, so I will see you next week. I think we're going to wrap this particular series up soon, but I have a lot of things that I want to share with you. Thank you so much. Peace.